It was our fast moving, cheering, clapping, and cozy global world. Before the pandemic, how many of us heard about lockdown? In 2019, a year before the pandemic, there were 4,000 recorded instances of the lockdown word being used, and a year later, in 2020, it soared to more than a quarter of a million. Lockdown ultimately defined the year 2020. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, India announced its first phase of lockdown on March 24.
आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है।
I was scrolling my phone and received a notification of lockdown. I knew what a lockdown is, but I didn't have any idea how would it reveal itself in the real world. After 21 days, there was another lockdown. No one knows how and when things will change. Pandemic brings not the same consequences for everyone. We see trends like we are in this together, but for millions of people it wasn't true. In a country like India, where 42 crore workers work in an unorganized sector, lockdown fell heavily on them. A survey of 11,000 migrant workers by the Standard Workers Action Network reported that 50% of workers had rations left for less than one day. It was NGOs and group of people who came forward for them.
So our fight in COVID relief started right after the first pandemic. We've been helping laborers, families, marginal people right from the beginning, from the very first lockdown. We've worked across sectors. We've worked with everybody who was suffering, who needed help at different level. And to give you an estimate, we must have helped around 50,000 families so far.
In the first month of the lockdown, in the 13 states, NGOs fed more people than the government. We all are fighting the war, some by living inside the home and some by doing their necessary job outside. And in this battle, our front runners are doctors and nurses. They are our soldiers fighting with viruses to save humanity.
We are doing our best efforts in limited resources. We are having limited resources. In these limited resources, we have to do a good work.
Did you remember the way we were living before the pandemic? Take a tour of the house and you will notice our changes from grocery to medicines. There is a quote from Lenin: there are some decades where nothing happens, and there are some weeks where decades happen. And those are some weeks where things were changing in an unpredicted way. Historian, author of the Homo sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari argues.
We are entering a time when history is accelerating. In the next 2-3 months, we are conducting enormous social and political experiments that will completely change the world.
Our virtual world established itself as a new world for a new era. Our pandemic world can't survive without this virtuality. In every part of society, they are making changes. In Hong Kong, an AI-powered learning platform for little trees monitors the students' emotion as they study at home. In very little time, we entered the Zooming world. The millennials and Generation Z often carry the blame for the isolation of society, but our younger generation also suffered the era of isolation.
के कारण सभी विश्वविद्यालय बंद थे और इसी वजह से प्रैक्टिकल वर्क्स ज़्यादा हो नहीं पाए। अगर विश्वविद्यालय खुले होते तो प्रैक्टिकल वर्क्स ज़्यादा होते और हमें अध्ययन करने का और सीखने का ज़्यादा मौका मिलता।
This online environment, I realized that the progress what I have made is far less than that what I could have made in the offline semester at my college or in the normal condition.
मैं एक थिएटर आर्टिस्ट हूँ और कई तरह के शोज़ करता रहता हूँ, कई स्ट्रीट शोज़ भी करता हूँ, लेकिन इस लॉकडाउन के कारण मुझे एक भी शो नहीं मिला।
We are missing that street food which we used to eat with our friends. Also roaming around places and going to relative house in the vacation. Actually, this feels very sad when we have holidays but we can't go anywhere.
They face anxiety, depression, education uncertainties, restriction on their freedom and socialization. The pandemic times also abolished their rituals. Last year, a survey done by an international labor organization found that 1 in 2 youngsters was prone to experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression.
In March, I was planning to go to the city and resume all my pre-COVID activities. But the family insisted on one more month. And here we are.
कोरोना हम सभी के धैर्य, हम सभी के दुख बर्दाश्त करने की सीमा की परीक्षा ले रहा है। बहुत से अपने हमें असमय छोड़कर चले गए हैं। इस तूफान ने देश को झकझोर दिया है।